So I picked these three cities because, not because I've spent a lot of time in them, but because the time I spent in them was very interesting and unusual. So you're not going to get a whole encyclopedia thing about these cities, just a little bit, but they are interesting ones. So I think we're ready to start, and thank you very much for coming. We started out with almost nobody here, thinking people were still away for Thanksgiving, and here you are. So, Harbin, Beijing, and Chengdu are all interesting cities, very large cities. And like many cities in China, have millions and millions of people in them, and we know so little about them. Always surprising to me. Come on in. So here's the map of China by province. And we have already, you probably haven't all been here, but we've already talked about Tibet and Yunnan province and Xinjiang province. So now we're sort of in the northeast part of China. Up here is Harbin. All of this is Russia. So it's practically on the Russian border and has a lot of Russian influences. And here is Beijing, of course, the capital. And here is Chengdu, the capital of Sichuan province. Have you all been to all of these? Anybody been to all of these or one of these? A lot of people have been to Beijing. So Beijing, it would take several hours to talk about everything that's going on in Beijing. And I've been there many times, but this time I was in a unique place, and I want to talk about that. So that's what it looks like. And we'll start out with Harbin, which is up here in, I'm not sure I can pronounce the name of this province. Somebody help. Ah, say it again.
Heilongjiang.
Heilongjiang. I get it almost. Besides being hard to pronounce, it's tonal too, I hear. So it's the capital of this big province, fairly big province, bordering Russia. And it's China's northernmost province. The city grew in the late 19th century with the influx of Russian engineers constructing the eastern leg of the Trans-Siberian. Has anybody done that? It's now called the Trans-Manchurian. I think I'll do that sometime. It sounds interesting. The city's Russian architecture includes its green dome San Sofia Cathedral, which I don't have a picture of, sorry. It's an Eastern Orthodox church, but now it's a local history museum because there's not that many churches in China that are functional. Probably wrong too. And across the river, Sun Island Park, famous for its year-round ice sculptures. But I was there in July or August, I can't remember which. Fortunately, it was not freezing, so there was no ice show. So people who really want to see what's outstanding about Harbin should go in December, January, where it is very cold and where there are magnificent ice sculptures. I only have a few pictures of the ice sculptures, but they are amazing. Anybody ever seen that? Mm-hmm. I saw an ice festival in Hokkaido in northern Japan, which was amazing. And this one in Harbin is supposed to be even better. So it's a small town of almost 11 million people, as many Chinese cities are. And this is a picture, apparently, I don't know this well enough to know, but here's China, Mongolia, Russia, and this is the Trans-Manchurian that started the city of Harbin going by being built here. So I thought it'd be fun sometime to go from here to Vladivostok and then to Beijing, over here somewhere. And I went to Harbin right after I had come from North Korea, which is here. And I went to North Korea after coming from Beijing, and I went to Beijing after coming from Kazakhstan, and I went to Kazakhstan after spending a week in Germany. So, consequently, by the time I got to Harbin, I was pretty weak and probably sick. So I didn't have as much time to explore as I would have liked to. But the part I saw was wonderful. And by some dumb luck, I found a wonderful old Victorian-style hotel in the middle of sort of a summer festival. And you'll see what that is like. So, Harbin is the 8th most populous Chinese city and the most populous in northeast China. It is a key political, economic, scientific, cultural, and communications hub. So it's a very important city. I know very little about it except the little part that I was in. This is sort of a rough compilation of things that there are to see in Harbin. This includes the Snow Festival, the Ice Palace, and I think this is Santa Sofia. I didn't see any of it, but what I saw was wonderful. This is an old demolished Russian church, St. Nicholas. You can see the influence of Russian architecture more, I think, before, because a lot of these buildings don't exist anymore. But there is still an influence, which makes it very interesting. And also a little bit of food influence in Harbin of Russia. This is Zongyang Street, Zongyang. And I think this is my hotel. This I did not see. It looks like an amazing piece of architecture about which I know very little, but it is the Opera House. And it looks like it's in the middle of wetlands and waterways near the river. So this last paragraph is important. Having the most bitterly cold winters among major Chinese cities, Harbin is heralded as the ice city for its well-known winter tourism and recreation. I showed you before pictures of Yunnan province, where I lived for 3 months. And I watched television a lot, CCTV, which had English language programs. And they were always having documentaries about Harbin. And I remember one where these young people were in a restaurant, and they were fully clothed. They had their mufflers on and their earmuffs and everything. And they were breathing steam out of their mouths, and they were eating. And I thought, somehow this doesn't appeal to me. I don't think I want to go there in the middle of winter. But it must be a spectacular sight. I do remember in Hokkaido, as bitterly cold as it was outside, there was a whole city underground. And also the hotels were nicely heated, so it really wasn't as bad as one would think. So I'll have to go back there sometime. This Harbin, because at one time it had some proximity to Paris through transportation, was at one time the fashion capital. And the textiles are very interesting and unusual, including the scarf that I bought there, which you wouldn't think of as particularly a Chinese scarf or a Russian scarf. But a lot of the textiles there are quite interesting and different. So this is a building from the Ice Festival. As you can tell how absolutely spectacular it must be.
How tall is it?
That's all snow. There's lots of YouTubes on how to make these sculptures in case you're interested. So they start with compacted snow and water, and they sculpt them. Really takes a lot more talent than regular sculpture, I think, because it's so cold and it could melt. But this is what was going on around my hotel. I don't think it was a particular holiday, but there was lots of food, lots of entertainment, lots of music on the street. I only had the energy to walk a little bit around my hotel, and within 4 or 5 blocks in either direction of the hotel. But there was amazing foods to eat there. I'm not sure why they were all in a skewer. I guess that's the way they prepared over charcoal. This is the main street that I was on. There's a Kentucky Fried, and there's sort of a sculpture of an ice sculpture, and lots of food to eat. Some Russian, Chinese posters, and more ice sculptures, and you can see that the women are not backward at all. They're very modern. More skewers of more food. One night, or one afternoon, I guess into the night, there were these 3 musicians on the balcony of, I think this is my hotel, playing music, and I'm not sure I recorded it, and then there was a woman sitting there. I started to talk to her, but we didn't get anywhere because she didn't speak English, and, well, you'll see that this little oasis of European, mostly style architecture is surrounded by very modern buildings. Oh, there it was. There they are. So that's what they were doing. It was so festive, it was amazing. More skewers. Harbin beer. A lot of seafood, and there is a river that runs around it. I don't know if that's where this seafood comes from. A lot of it looks like it's right out of McDonald's. Skewered potato chips. There were people out on the streets all day long and all night long. Quiet. They were quiet in families, just having fun. Statue of somebody that looks like an American cowboy. John Wayne. Maybe so. Doesn't look Chinese. So people eating at these long tables. It surprised me. I didn't expect what I thought was an obscure small town in northeastern China on the Russian border to look like this. I didn't realize it was so modern, and it's definitely not a small town. So, because we were on the Russian border, I felt like I had to have Russian food. So, in the hotel was a very nice dining room. So I ordered borscht. It was okay. If you go to the European deli up the street, it's better borscht, but this was pretty good. And caviar, I had to order caviar. And it came with a slice of white bread, and I complained. Of course, the waiter didn't know what I was talking about, but it shouldn't be white bread, it should be some dark Russian rye. This was a playbill, I guess, from one of the stores down the street, because there was music on the street all the time. Some of it beautiful classical music, like Beethoven, and some of the popular music, and this was the playbill for some of the music that was going on, which you can see is a lot of American music, Western music. This is the building that had, where I bought my scarf, had a lot of beautiful things in it. I bought a beautiful iPhone case, but I lost it.
Actually, it's a pharmacy.
Thank you. See what happens when you don't read the language? It's a pharmacy. Okay. But in the pharmacy, they had a lot of beautiful gifts there. Maybe it was not the store I bought this in. I don't know. very Romanesque statues there. As just an aside here, when I was coming up on the plane from Beijing, I was sitting next to this young man, and I didn't try to communicate with him because I assumed he didn't speak English. And he turned to me and said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "San Diego, where are you from?" And he said, "Indianapolis." And he had been educated in Harbin, and he moved to America, got a job with Amazon as an accountant. And so we've corresponded since then. He was very nice. And his parents met him, of course, at the gate. And I told them where I was going, and they said, "Okay, we'll take you there." And I thought, okay, it can't be too much out of the way, until I realized later that it was a huge city. And where I don't know exactly where I was, but it was right in the middle, and I'm sure it was quite a bit out of the way for them. But I think by that time I was hobbling around. They must have felt sorry for me. But you can see there was Russian souvenirs here, these dolls. Another ice sculpture. There's Kentucky Fried, better picture of it. For our photographer here, there's a Watson's there. Watson's Bar and Grill, I guess, or whatever it says. Probably says pharmacy, I don't know. And a very nice chocolate store. Very cosmopolitan little area there. And as I was saying, it's surrounded by a lot of modern buildings. Heritage architecture. So first built in 1925, probably this little square. He came up and not seriously tried to sell me this little purse, but we had a nice conversation. He spoke a little bit of English. I had seen this in China before, these bronze sculptures of people doing things from maybe 100 years ago. I'm very impressed with them. So this is an artist, and I don't know if that's his model or not, but all in bronze. This was on one of the walls, talked about the different festivals of Harbin. This is the street again. I shifted myself from one bench to another, so since I had very little energy by that time. Either the people are very stylish or very poor. I don't know which. I've seen these torn jeans in the most remote places in the world. Kazakhstan, I've seen them, and I'm assuming they're fashionable. I don't get the style myself. This is another side of the same street. And again, in bronze, these carriages.
Lemon drink.
Lemon drink. What is that here?
The yellow one.
The yellow one?
Yes.
That's wonderful. What does this say?
Up at the top it says Harbin.
That's an oyster fry.
It's called
Fish, okay.
Fish
That
bowl.
figures. This is a wine store, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
Even I could figure that out.
Chanel.
More of these stalls. This is essentially my hotel in the background there. Beautiful hotel.
How are the prices?
Huh?
Prices?
Prices are very cheap. The hotel, I think, was about $80 a night, if I recall.
Red here.
Yeah.
There's this horse and carriage in bronze, amazing.
What years was that?
It was about, 2015 when I went to North Korea, yeah.
Pretty current.
So this is the main dining room of the hotel, where I have my borscht and caviar. Mostly they serve Chinese food. You know, I was looking for Russian food, but that was not exactly appropriate. This is the view from my hotel window, and the ice museum, which had replicas of sculptures that they did there. You can see it's a very bustling, it's a large area,
Yes.
and I was very fortunate to figure out to stay at this hotel. Another amazing bronze musicians. One of the things that had interested me about Harbin over the years, I had later found out this was the case through these documentaries that I'd seen on CCTV, was that it had been a center of Jewish culture for a long time. I think the Jews migrated there from Russia. There were many, actually, refugees from Russia of different nationalities that came to Harbin. But there was a large Jewish population. Whether there is now or not, I don't know. But this is a picture of a Jewish cemetery. I didn't get there, but I did find this. And this is an old picture of what this main street used to look like. So you can see that there's Russian printing and Japanese printing, and I guess the Japanese came, not sure, from Manchuria, I guess. And just so you don't think it's all quaint, this is some of the buildings. This is the Bank of Harbin building. And this is built of ice. So,
Is that you?
there's a start. See them up there?
The Faye in the mask there.
That's why I wound up in the hospital. I didn't know what pneumonia was like. Apparently, I had it, and it accounted for why I was so tired. So it was quite a trek to get from Harbin back to Beijing, and from Beijing back to San Francisco to San Diego. By that time, I was ready for the hospital. So, but since I had been in so many places, you know, where did you come from? Well, I was in China, and I was in North Korea. Oh yeah, and I was in Kazakhstan. Oh yeah, I was in Germany. So they put me in isolation because they thought I had, at the least, Ebola. Nothing very benign, and I was in isolation. Had to wear hazmat outfit to come and see me, but I didn't have anything like that. Okay, so that's a little bit of Harbin. I would certainly go back there. It's a lot of fun, and it's a very interesting city. I could tell a little bit when I was driving back and forth to the airport. It was a big city. There is a river around it. It's very nicely landscaped, and there are some residual Russian architectural styles there, and a lot of modern buildings. So if you're interested in going back, I would recommend December or January. No, I would. Yes, I would. That's when I would go back, I think, to see this ice festival. Oh, another street band. There's all kinds of music going on. Classical, pop, all sorts of things. Okay, so the next stop is Beijing. How many of you have been to Beijing? Yeah. And you've seen the Forbidden City and the Great Wall and all the things that there are to see in Beijing. Did we go to Beijing together, Nancy? I can't remember. No. Did we go to Beijing together? I can't remember. We did, didn't we? Yeah. Nancy, my old-time travel companion. And so I'd seen all that stuff, and I'd been to Beijing 3 or 4 or 5 times, I don't know, whatever, and seen the surroundings. And this time, I was trying to rest up before going to North Korea, and also we had our orientation there from Koryo Tours, so I had to be in Beijing, and I had just come from Kazakhstan. So I didn't want to see all that stuff. I wanted to see the Arts District. I had never seen that before. And then I had found this very interesting little hotel on a hutong. A hutong is a alley, somebody define it, where people live. They can be very long streets and bicycles and cars and horses and wagons can go up hutongs. And the last time I was in Beijing, I think there was an old hutong that was preserved that we saw on a tour. But there's still hutongs where people actually live. And I found this little hotel there, which seemed like a very authentic Chinese hotel, so I was thrilled. And that's where I stayed. And of course, this is the second largest city in China next to Shanghai. And it has a lot of very modern architecture and traditional, as you know. It's a mega city with 5 rings now around it, or more than that. And it's an important city for art and architecture and fashion and everything else. And it has at least 20 million people there. I didn't notice any pollution. So I breathed normally and I saw everything. I could see my hand in front of me and I could see the buildings, and I guess I was lucky. So this is this little hotel, Double Happiness. I just absolutely love this little place. They say it goes back to the Qing dynasty, except there's modern toilets and showers. And everything is quite comfortable and accommodating. The breakfasts are fantastic, big Chinese breakfast buffet style. And you can walk up and down the hutong, find restaurants, government buildings, people's homes, people sitting outside their homes, people on bicycles, motorcycles. This is a testimonial on TripAdvisor. People are saying, if you're looking for authentic accommodations dating back to the Qing dynasty, but with modern toilet shower, friendly and helpful staff, good buffet breakfast, an interesting location, then give this small property a go. Thanks, Double Happiness, you played a big role in our enjoyment during our stay in China. And then another family said a little gem among the hutongs. It was just a gem. And she was there at the same time I was there. And I didn't speak any Chinese, she didn't speak any English, but we had a wonderful time together. She sort of followed me around, and she liked to decorate herself. I don't know where she got this amazing headdress, but when I first met her, that's what she looked like. She must have been 9 years old or something. This is a painting that's there. It's related actually to a painting I bought in Beijing many years ago.
There you are.
So there's a carriage, what is it called?
Tricycle. Pedicab.
Pedicab? The front of it is drawn by a person
No.
on a bicycle. And they would take you anywhere you wanted to go. You got a free ride on the pedicab. And this is the courtyard. And this little guy is a mynah bird. And my little friend liked to talk to the mynah bird. And mynah bird talked back. It seems to me I have a recording of that. There he is. I think with enough patience he would say ni hao. He was a big favorite. Got him. Does that sound like ni hao to you? Yes, right. There she is.
How old was she?
She's probably 9 years old. We didn't communicate, I have no idea. Except she was always there and we had a good time together. This was a Korean restaurant up the street. No, it was a Szechuan restaurant, I think. So I took the pedicab to the main street. It was very difficult to get a taxi cab to the Arts District. And as you can see, there are very modern buildings in Beijing and interesting art. The Arts District is pretty big, so I only saw a small portion of it. This is not nice to point out, but in the Arts District, which is a very pleasant, nice place to be, are these toilets, and this is the Chinese toilet. And I remember from having lived there before that sometimes the toilets were horrible. So this one was. The other stuff is art. Little country western music. Just a little part of the Arts District. Soft serve ice cream that appealed to me. It's pretty hot, actually. Some of these centers were by ticket only or by invitation only or closed unless there was an opening. Most of it was available though. I can't remember what these guys are. What these birds are. I can't remember. I think they're birds. A lot of bicycles around still in Beijing. Some very beautiful clothes in some of these galleries. Back to Double Happiness Hotel. This is a picture they have on the internet. And I think this is the bridal suite. It's very elaborate covered beds. The whole place has beautiful relics of old things. There's an old telephone, collection of hats. This is a covered area to sit. My room was very pleasant, not covered bed, but very nice. The staff was very nice, spoke good English. This is a Korean dish. I had the end of the hutang. I walked up to the end. There was a number of restaurants, including Korean, so I ate there. But this is breakfast. This is somebody hauling dogs around. I think they were dogs. This is traffic on the hutang, so you can see there's cars. I think this is actually an ambulance. Bikes, people living there, there's chairs, a radio out there. It's a place where people live, which is very, very interesting. And our hotel is here. And also cabs would come into the hutang. That's the one I rode in. It was very interesting. I found in cities in China that it would be a main street with sort of routine stores on it. But if you went down the side streets, that's where people actually lived, slaughtered animals, had restaurants, did the laundry. The side streets were really interesting, and that's what this hutang was like. That's the hotel. These were things around the hotel. And that's the pedicab thing again. Another place where I ate. Here's the breakfast. quite a selection. Amazing breakfast. This is what the courtyards looked like. There were several little courtyards. In contrast to a very modern building in Beijing. And part this from the arts district. So that's my few days in Beijing, and I love that little hotel. I highly recommend it if you go to Beijing. I've never stayed in one like that. It was always big, fancy hotels. Not a good idea. Okay, so finally we get to Chengdu. Anybody been to Chengdu? I know Lily has. Very interesting city. I didn't have much time. This was a different trip entirely. And I was coming from Tibet. But I knew that Chengdu had its own culture and particularly had its own pandas. So it's the capital, Sichuan province. Again, one of the 3 most populous cities in Western China with a population of more than 10 million people. You know, one of these small Chinese towns. And they all date back thousands of years. It's now one of the most important economic, financial, commercial, cultural, transportation, and communication centers in Western China, and as Harbin was in Northern China. There are now more than 260 Fortune 500 companies with branches in Chengdu. And it's unique in that it has maintained its name nearly unchanged through several eras.
Can you point out on the map where it is?
I copied this map, and the place where Sichuan province is about here, but it didn't transfer. So I can go back to the first slide, and you can see it was the southernmost one in that line of eastern cities.
Chengdu's weather is very much like San Diego, not too hot, not too cold.
Yeah, they do have earthquakes, though.
Oh,
We have earthquakes too, yeah. But they've had a lot of damage from earthquakes in the fairly close past. This is the hotel I found from Travel Guide, I can't remember. And there were a lot of young people there. It was fun. So I had come to see the pandas, and there they are. Oh, and also the other thing is, Sichuan opera is a lot like Peking opera, with a little different twist, and these are the masks they use. And that night I went to see some of that performance. It was a wonderful show. Okay, so here they are, and they're so cute that I took a lot of pictures of them. They're very, they look more industrious than they are. They're not really. They eat only one kind of bamboo, as you know. And this reservation, which is a breeding ground for pandas, has lots and lots and lots of this one kind of bamboo. So you pay something to have them sit on your lap. And they didn't seem to mind. It was cold. Interesting, I got this jacket. It's a what is it called? North Face jacket. When I was traveling through Yunnan province, because I figured it was probably made in China. It was a good place to buy one. And I was going to Tibet, which I thought was going to be very cold, which it turned out not to be that cold. But it was pretty cold in Chengdu. So the giant panda is one of the rarest animals in the world, with about 1,500 remaining, 80% of which are in Sichuan province. And this is a breeding center for giant pandas called Chengdu Research Base of Giant Panda Breeding. It was founded in the northern suburbs of Chengdu. Only one of its kind in the world. It's located in the metropolitan area. We do some breeding, I think, at the San Diego Zoo, but not like what's going on here. They seem very happy. They're so cute. And they're just as soft and nice and cuddly as they seem to be. They also have raccoons there. It's not the kind of raccoons we know, but it looks like raccoons. And you get them to sit on your lap too, except they put plastic on your lap, so in case there's an accident. They have amazingly long tails.
Must use them.
And that's a little sculpture outside. So back to Chengdu, this is a carriage on the street. And it's a very modern city with terrible traffic. But bicycles squeeze themselves in between the traffic. No helmets.
They don't fall
So that night I was able to see some of this Sichuan opera. I guess it's called Shu opera. And the saying Shu Opera Towers above all other performances in the world reflects the achievement of Sichuan opera and Saju, an ancient form of comedic drama involving dancing, singing, poetry, and miming. In the city, the first named opera, Bullfighting, was written in the Warring States period, which was a while back. The first detailed recorded opera was staged in the royal court of Shu Kingdom during the Three Kingdom period. When was this? 300 years ago, maybe? China's first clearly recorded Saju was also performed in Chengdu. There's many kinds of Chinese opera, of course. And tombs of Han Dynasty poets were excavated in Chengdu. And these face-changing masks is what was interesting to see. And fire-breathing remains hallmarks of the Sichuan opera, usually performed in tea houses where I saw it. A little juggling, little puppetry. She is dancing with a bowl lit up with a candle on her head. Here's some of the masks. So, that's it. And thanks for coming.